In today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at the tropics, where I would say there is a growing concern of a potential tropical cyclone tracking from the Caribbean, perhaps to the Bahamas, the southeast, off the southeast coast of the United States, or the Gulf of Mexico. So we're going to be taking a deep dive into that, where now the National Hurricane Center is basically placing us on watch, saying that there's a medium chance of this one developing at this point, so that is increasing in odds according to them. We will be going over that today. There's multiple major storms expected for the central and eastern United States, which is a very, very big change in the pattern overall. We dealt with some historically quiet conditions for a lot of September and most of October so far in the central and eastern United States. Most folks were at least threatening to end the month at probably the driest month on record, period, for a lot of viewing areas. Very interesting. I know that there has been zero precipitation here in Virginia, and if we get through the next 3 days with practically none, might make a run for, historical numbers. I know some folks have dealt with absolutely no precipitation before in certain months, but for those who haven't, there's a chance that happens this month. Obviously, we've only had records for in most areas, 150, 200 years, something like that, at least accurate numbers, but still crazy nevertheless. Big changes on the way, though. I don't mean to go on too much of a tangent there. It's just very interesting to me. Cold fronts coming through. There's at least 2 or 3 coming. High precipitation, not the most cold fronts I've ever seen in the world, but they will bring cooler air. So let's just dive into things. We're taking a look here at the European ensemble model first off. We see its area of origination here is going to be in the kind of like Central America area, Southern Central America, Northern South America area. And this one is expected to generally track northward. This European model wants to take it towards the Gulf in most cases, with a couple kind of straying out to the east here, although that's a huge outlier. We are looking at the consensus basically showing something along these lines. The European model has struggled with tropical systems this year dramatically, especially compared to the GFS model. So let's take a look at the GFS model, which we have been kind of taking day by day. This is day 5, so this will be November 2nd. And what we see is it's originating at about day 5 here. Some of these even showing about, 900s already, lower 1000. So it is getting off to a hot start on some of these. And by the time we take a look at day, I guess this will be day 7. That's kind of where we jump. So this will be November 4th. And what we see is, instead of heading kind of westward towards the Gulf, we see a lot more of an eastern track here on the start. And that is a big and very immediate difference on this GFS model compared to the European model. So time will tell which one's correct, but that is absolutely a huge, massive difference. And we see much stronger storms here. We're seeing 990s, 980s here very, very quickly. A lot of these wanting to recurve near eastern Cuba, perhaps nearby Haiti here. And there is a couple that kind of just keep taking it to the east. So obviously a massive difference here. This is day, 8 here that we're looking at. So November 5th. And what we're seeing is kind of like that true start to that curve here. So we're seeing this begin here near Jamaica or Cuba on most of these. We do see a couple. It's a lot closer to Haiti, heading towards the Bahamas. But something like this is the consensus. Somehow they're all dodging Cuba. So it's either south or north of Cuba that this is happening. Obviously, these southern ones, you're going to kind of think that we're going to see some sort of Gulf entry. And these northern ones, it's going to bring much more of a Bahama impact. So that is also a huge split there, and there's some implications. So we'll have to see if the European model or the GFS model is correct on that either eastern or western heading right out of the gate. And then we'll have to see which kind of group of these GFS models would be correct if it does head eastward, whether it's going to kind of curve very early on south of Cuba or later on a lot closer to Haiti, maybe heading towards the Bahamas. So there is a couple forks in the road, as you can tell. Let's head to day 9 here, which will be November 6th. And again, we see the southern ones much stronger, by the way. A lot in the 980s. Let's see. I think all of them are pretty much 980s here, maybe 990s on some of them. And then we're seeing a lot more like upper 90s, some 980s, and a lot of like 1,000 millibar systems out here to the east. So this southern solution seems to be the much more powerful solution, staying south or nearby Cuba there. Let's take a look at day 10. And what we see is that a lot of these southern ones are now heading kind of over Cuba, something like this. These northern ones heading towards the Bahamas, as I mentioned, a couple of these kind of heading out to sea from this point, and there is quite a few as well showing this more out to sea solution. So there is many different kind of solutions here if you were to look at it as more of like a flow chart. There is so many different forks and different directions this could head. This is going to be a confusing one to track. Day 11 here, we see that a lot of these Cuba ones would show some sort of curvature back towards southeast or southwestern Florida there, perhaps impacting the Keys, maybe as far northward as kind of the Fort Myers area would be something to watch. And we see a few of these heading over the Bahamas, but I don't think any of these really show an eastern Florida impact. Yeah, we really don't see that. This is by day, I guess 12 here, something along those lines. And we see a few of these have headed over Florida. We still have a couple of them out here between the Yucatan Peninsula and Cuba. And then these ones that head eastward are just much weaker. So a couple strong impacts being picked up on near southern Florida so far. Here is day 13 and 14. We really don't get any other Florida impacts. So a whole lot can happen. But if you were to draw a cone, for the most part at this point, which take this with a grain of salt, by the way, because this is going to be crazy. But something like this, it really... we're getting this eastern movement, but it could head very far southward, could head kind of towards the Bahamas and then out to sea, turns into more of a nor'easter type system, or just directly out to sea. A whole lot to go over and really no clear consensus yet. Still, we are considering that it could head directly westward towards the Gulf like the European model showed, or eastward and then curving. I mean, this is going to be a crazy one to track, but I'm looking forward to it. I love these challenging situations. Definitely is stimulating for me, at least. Let's take a look at later on this afternoon on Monday, the 28th of October, and we do have quite a bit of storminess happening across the west. Snowfall for the higher elevations, obviously the lower elevation and coastal areas are in the form of rainfall there. Not a whole lot of precipitation to speak of outside of that. We have a pretty massive ridge over the central states with a slight descending kind of pattern here over the east, which will bring neutral temperatures, I'd say near normal temperatures for most areas. Very warm compared to normal, though, in this corridor, and then much cooler than normal out west right there. As we move towards Tuesday, what we see is a strong low forms over eastern Colorado, and we've been tracking this one for about a week now. We get heavy Rocky Mountain snowfall, so a considerable snowstorm there, especially in Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado. What we're going to see is a cold front is going to form off of this one eventually as it moves up into the upper Midwest. This is by Wednesday morning, and what we see is 1,002 millibar low pressure center here. Clear cold front underneath, clear warm front to the north, and this is where a lot of your precipitation is going to be happening along that cold front boundary. This very warm pattern takes over now for the east for the most part. Also a lot of high pressure to the south here, so no lows are forming in these areas. We have just this high pressure dominant pattern, but let's see what happens. I mean, we move towards, this is interesting. Watch the low, it moves up into Canada, and we see it reform. This happens sometimes, but it kind of transfers that energy southward along that cold front, and we kind of start over the central plains. So watch this. Wednesday afternoon, here is Thursday afternoon, and we see it move northward. That new low moves all the way from Oklahoma through Kansas, Missouri, and then forms really well over kind of the Midwest area here. By the time we're reaching Thursday, very early in the morning, 5 a.m. here, we get this dragging cold front, warm front up to the north, and once again, we're in basically the path of this heavy precipitation cold front. Wouldn't be too surprised with these current dynamics if there is some thunderstorm activity in these areas, maybe even severe weather, but heavier showers is going to be almost a certainty for these areas impacted by that system. Meanwhile, we do have some storminess moving onshore to the Pacific Northwest, bringing snowfall again to the mountains, rainfall in those lower elevation regions. Let's take a look here at the kind of like Thursday afternoon time frame, and that low is now moved over the Great Lakes. This cold front is progressing eastward, and this warm front is still well up to the north. So the temperatures you could expect is warm along this eastern corridor, and much cooler swinging underneath for this kind of cold front corridor right behind it. Again, cooler, not necessarily super cold. Especially we have this cool down happening in the Pacific Northwest as well. This will kind of flatten everything out and make it a lot less dramatic. Once again, snowfall for the Cascades and Northern Rockies as well by this Thursday afternoon time frame on Halloween. So pretty impactful. By Friday, this does reach the East Coast, but you can see it does dwindle. Again, high pressure has been kind of the theme here for a lot of these areas. So we get these passing showers. It could be some precipitation for folks that really need it, but it's not going to be as heavy of a rainmaker as it heads towards the East Coast as it is further inland where things are really equally dry. So everybody kind of needs it. I'm glad somebody gets it at least. Let's take a look at Saturday on November 2nd, and we start to get this storminess across the south central states kind of trending in, and that's been really what we've been seeing on the models for a while now. We also get a weaker low here over kind of the Rockies and western states, maybe near the Sierra Nevada actually, where we do get snowfall. So the Sierra Nevada mountains and the northern Rockies, especially with some rainfall for the more coastal and lower areas out there, which of course this time of year is always the theme. Really for the West, it's always the theme. Sunday the 3rd, we're really seeing storms all over the place for the central states, and that kind of continues until this point. Very early on Tuesday the 5th, we do see a lot of storminess here for the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast, where they really need that rainfall. South central states still dealing with some storms there, and then snowfall for the northern Rockies behind a Canadian low. So a lot of very much needed things taking place. Here comes a really monster storm Tuesday on the 5th here. 998. I mean, sometimes the intensity of the load does not reflect the intensity of the impacts. We are seeing a really intense flow of moisture here again into the Midwest and South Central states, where once again thunderstorms, severe weather cannot be ruled out, but showers and much needed rainfall is really going to be the main impact here, and really a good one. We see snowfall for the Rockies once again, and a really cold descending pattern behind this forming low in Colorado. As we move towards Wednesday afternoon, it's kind of just similar to our other lows that we've seen. It moves through the Midwest into the Great Lakes with a dragging cold front, much lower precipitation in this case, but there is still some around, and cold air is really working its way in behind all of this. So that's kind of where we leave things off. I'm curious to see what we move into after this. We're seeing the battle of the air masses, and that's always what's so fun about this October-November timeframe is, you know, summer is really battling with winter, but by this time of year, winter is winning, and that is the theme. So very fun times. The total precipitation looks really promising. Pacific Northwest and Rockies, where they have been getting some, so they don't really need it as much. We do see a lot for there, but the main areas that I'm happy about is going to be this pocket here, where things have been very dry for a long time, but they are seeing a huge surge in rainfall. And the main areas that have yet to see at least improvement on the forecast is going to be my neck of the woods, the southeast into the southern mid-Atlantic, unfortunately. So we shall wait, but I'm sure things will turn around at some point, and it does appear like that precipitation is continuing to track further and further eastward slowly, so that should be good news. Precipitation anomalies still above average for most of the Pacific Northwest and Rockies, but the main area seeing a huge surge is that same area seeing high precipitation. Surprise, surprise. They're seeing inches above average throughout these blue and dark green areas. Very good news for these folks. Total snowfall looking quite intense. We do see some around the Great Lakes and upper Midwest. The Northeast, we are seeing some mountainous snowfall happening, but the Cascades, Sierra Nevada, and Rockies is where really things shine, which is very common for the fall, where we see feet of snowfall across these mountain ranges for some spots. And again, we mentioned it yesterday, but the ski resorts just have to be loving this outlook for the coming weeks. Definitely looking really promising as far as high amounts of snowfall coming through with multiple storm systems. The temperature pattern overall, let's just work our way through it. It's cooler right now. Again, a little bit more neutral. This does warm up over time. We do get this initial cold front here that brings some more neutral temperatures for the first, second, third there, especially in the east, as they've been lingering in that area for the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. It does last a couple days, starting out on the 2nd of November. Here's the 3rd, 4th. It's hanging on for dear life here on the 4th, and then it's done, but 3-day cool down is longer than most everybody else got it. And this is where we end things off with a low somewhere. It's kind of like up here with a dragging cold front. We'll have to see if it can pull this cold eastward or not, but we do have this warm surge out ahead of it, which is very common. Typically, there's a warm front somewhere up in here. And then this cool down, again, we'll have to see if it stays stagnant or if it does move eastward with that cold front. Big question marks, but we shall see. GFS model. Cooler air right now, warmer moving in. Again, cold front moving in after that, then a warm up, then a cool down, then a warm up kind of at the end. So again, flip-flopping. We get a lot more cold there on that GFS model, but still a very flip-floppy pattern. Everybody's going to get some cooler days and some warmer days, some more than others, but basically everybody gets their fair share of both for the most part. Let's take a look here at the National Hurricane Center 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook. And I love everything about the weather. It's going to be sad to not look at these anymore. I always miss that, so I'm going to hold on to it for dear life. I think it's fun to look at, and definitely very, very interesting and intriguing, and equally dangerous and impactful. So it's very important to look at as well. We do have a 40% chance of development. Again, a medium risk at this point over the next 7 days of development. That same area that, again, we've been tracking. It does have a 0% chance over the next 48 hours, which isn't surprising because, again, kind of originating at like the day 5 or 6 time frame. So we still have a ways to go. But this is not a good sign. We do see this increasing chance on the National Hurricane Center, kind of going along with what I've been saying. So definitely not good news. We'll have to see what this storm ends up doing if it does develop. Very curious as to what this one's going to do, and I don't really have anything hammered down, but I feel confident that we will see some sort of development at this point. The models have been very consistent, and conditions look ripe. We'll have to see if that leads to anything, though. So stay tuned with us. We do upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.